thank you very, very much for joining us. As I said, we've got Emmy Monash already joined us, and I welcome them as we do each week. And we often have Sheridan Hall and we've had Jewish Care as well join us, Our Care. So we welcome them as they come in. Welcome to you all. Thank you very much for joining us today. Welcome to you, Beverley. It's a distinct pleasure to be able to catch up with you. It's been a while since we've caught up face to face, but certainly this is a great opportunity to catch up in front of others and hear a bit about yourself. You've made it quite big in the business world, and we're going to look at that in a moment. But if you don't mind, let me ask you a little bit about your family, kids and husband.
Hi, Ronnie, and hello to everyone joining in. Thank God we have been involved in a lockdown with a beautiful family that I have here. Yes. So I'm pleased to say that, yeah, we're still going strong, and I've got 3 beautiful boys, 1 husband and 2 sons. My husband is the rock of the family. He and I share everything. And he is really a stalwart. He's an English lawyer, and he's compassionate, and he's a real mensch. And, you know, he's someone that I just not only share my life with, but also share all the beautiful duties. It's not really duties, but accountabilities that we have in our life for our gorgeous 2 kids. So Baruch Hashem, that's my husband. And yeah.
I know your kids. I think one of them has blown the shofar for us for several years in our overflow.
Yeah, thank you, Ronnie. Due to you, looking for a shofar blower. He was the age of 13 and he was already blowing shofar at school. So I think how it worked out was you and he clicked, and before we knew it, we were going to St Kilda Shule on Rosh Hashanah. What a wonderful experience.
Good. That's a good promo. Ladies and gentlemen, it may not be true, but it's a great promo nonetheless. And you see your husband is the rock of the family. Do you see him often?
I see him often, every day.
Is it true that he works with you as well?
He's a silent partner.
Right.
He has his own business, and he manages a portfolio of partnerships for Telstra in the wholesale division of Telstra. And he's very busy doing that. He's got a very busy lifestyle too. So of course we do. We schedule our dinners. I'm kidding. We have a very normal lifestyle at home, albeit that we're all pretty busy. My sons are both doing university. My oldest son, who's currently finishing off a double degree in commerce and IT at Monash, and a digital expert. So he's really rocking hard. He's starting a job at Deloitte's in another week. So that's really good. And my second son, who just came back from Israel after 2 years also at Gush, he is now in a double degree at Monash too, studying global studies and science with a specialty in Chinese language.
Amazing. Now, before we get on to your leadership role, and certainly in terms of female leadership, you've had a long road getting there. So you've achieved a lot along the way. You're a trained lawyer, is that correct?
Yeah, qualified lawyer in Australia, then went to live overseas and became qualified in Israel, and then worked there as a lawyer, and then requalified in the UK and did the same and came back here. So I can say I'm pretty qualified internationally.
You have a specialty, though, in law, which is quite unique. In fact, I think you may have held a position as Australia's first in this position. What's your specialty in law?
So whilst I don't really practice law per se for many years, you're alluding to what I do at Monash. So behind me is Monash Moot Court. For those that don't know, pretty high-tech court where we practice with our students how to be barristers. And, you know, if you can look behind me, you can see that there are tables there, but through the tables rise computers and all this high-tech digital format that courts really are now using as well. So one day, a few years ago, I was asked to give a public oration for the Monash alumni And in that, I was approached later for what I could do for Monash, having been there many years before as a student, obviously. And I came up with some ideas that we can really fast forward some of the curriculum into new law. New law is a whole gamut of law where I fit in. And one of the things that I introduced to Monash Law faculty was a subject called entrepreneurship in the law. Because, you know, the whole landscape of clients and the legal landscape is changing dramatically from a whole number of ways. One of them is structurally, and the other one is from the client perspective. So structurally, we have these huge legal industries, if you like, that are now looking to reshape, because it's no longer the case where you necessarily want, you know, a structured, tiered arrangement when you're coming as a client. Clients are much more sophisticated. They demand good service, they demand good value, and sometimes you can offer that value through a different medium. And one of those mediums is new law, meaning not necessarily billing per hour, per minute, but providing services of value that can then be valued. And so the bill at the end of the day is expected and not just based on time.
Right.
And yeah, and also the whole startup industry, everyone wants to create businesses, and entrepreneurs are now reshaping industries and disrupting industries. So that whole pocket of clients that are growing, and they're young and old, but they're starting new businesses, can't really afford the old traditional lawyer, you know, arrangement. And so new law has been formed to reshape, to gear up for that new feel and industry of the way that corporations are reshaping.
Right. Now, Israel's known as a startup nation. Is there the new law, entrepreneurship law in Israel, to the best of your knowledge?
I think that the world over is now re-gearing, and it's a really good one. I was trained as a lawyer in Israel and qualified as a lawyer, but I believe that, yes, there are pockets of law now in the same way as there are in the US that are reshaping slowly, but it's a very structured industry and profession. And I think Israel is fairly structured with regards to the way that law is offered to clients. But Australia is kind of shaping like the US, where we're kind of being a little bit more nimble in the way that we're offering services. So it's a good question, because startup, you know, the startup nation is where it all started, you know, in terms of growing this whole dynamic of new businesses. I'm sure there are pockets of it, but it might be called something else.
Okay. And you are CEO of Honeylight Enterprises, I believe. What does Honeylight do?
Honeylight is a corporate advisory where we help businesses improve. And that means also helping professionals develop their own skill base. Right. We're going to companies and come up with ways of doing things better. And that could also be partly shaping leaders and managers through training programs.
And now I'd like to turn to female leadership. It's the buzzword at the moment, and St Kilda Shule, by the way, is one of the signatories to a pledge on gender equality. You're a winner of many awards, including the 2016 Businesswoman's Hall of Fame, where you've entered into the Hall of Fame. 2015 winner, I think, of the Australian Financial Review, Westpac 100 Women of Influence. What were those awards for?
They're all good titles, and awards are great. You know, the awards were for noting things that I've done in various businesses that I've started and grown successfully. And they're kind of like, you know, they look at what I've done and say, well, that's quite unique. And we'd like to put a platform to what you've done, for example, with some of the new industries that I've grown up. One of them, I think when I was working with building Greenville Developments, which is a building company where we take shipping containers off the ports that are just sitting there wasting. They've come from one country, usually in Asia, to Australia. they unload and then they sit there. So if you go past Docklands, you'll see tons and tons of shipping containers just sitting there. Absolutely terrible for the environment. Over time, they rust and rot and all sorts of terrible things, but they sit there, and it's not dissimilar in every country. So Greenville Developments was formed to acquire those shipping containers of good quality. So they've been here, it's just one destination and arrived in Australia, and repurpose them. Meaning repurpose them into affordable homes, repurpose them into mobile offices. And then we started working with Father Bob and the Father Bob Foundation and repurposing them for people in need and people that really are at a stage of homelessness. And we put together a whole series of things where Greenville Developments was the hardware, if you like. We provided the mobile homes, and Father Bob Foundation was the software, because they provided the services to people in need. You need a bit of both. And that was the time when I think that was one of the parts where the Women of Influence body through Westpac looked at what we were doing from a financial perspective and had Deloitte's go through our books and decide that I was heading up an organisation that was influential. There we go. So that for that. The listed Businesswomen's Hall of Fame is quite a unique thing.
Yes, tell us.
I'm amongst a few real stalwarts, which was the best thing about it. Who else is on it? There's 20 women every year. And on the year that I was asked to be listed, there was a lady called Stephanie Alexander, as you know. Mm-hmm. She's a recognised foodie, and she is she's got the Richmond Hill, but also many books, etc., and well known. And also Leona Edmiston, who you may not know, but she is a very well-known fashionista. So being surrounded by foodies and fashionistas, I thought it was a great place to be, but I didn't really have a choice. It just happened, and that's a great thing too. I think it's what you do with these things rather than the titles that is really important. And if I can use that to inspire other women and other people to do things that are outside of their norm or outside of their comfort zone, I think that's probably one of the key things that I'd like to share with the world.
What motivates you?
Achieving, doing things to help people, social conscience, and enjoying it at the same time. So, it's all about working with people, as you know, as the Rabbi of St Kilda Shule. You can do fantastic things and put together programs that are just unbelievable. But if you don't have the people with you that you get on with, that you enjoy working with, and the congregation that follows you, then you've just got fantastic programs. So I think it is what motivates me is working with great people and inspiring each other.
Great. I noticed, I hope you don't mind me mentioning it, I went online yesterday afternoon to look at the Melbourne City Council elections, which you were a contender. A bit disappointed?
Not at all. No, not at all. It was a great journey. It was a very short campaign. For those of you who don't know, I was asked to join the Lord Mayor's ticket for the Melbourne City Council. And I thought it was a really good thing to do because it's enabling me to put my community mindedness into a place that needs a lot of help with the pandemic and with the fact that, the city's gone just completely quiet. Now's the time to stick your neck out, I thought. And seeing that they asked me, I thought it was a good cause. From the point of view of our community, a large proportion of property in the city of Melbourne, the wider city of Melbourne, is owned by the Jewish community. So I can be a representative of that and help those that help others. So it's not disappointing. Obviously, if one is competitive, and I'm partly competitive, then you go in something to win it. And my mind frame and my mindset was definitely to get a seat on council. But the journey was amazing. The people that I met, Team Aaron Wood were just, a team that I want to work with forever. So I think that, everyone, it's not about the destination always. It's really about that journey.
So some lessons from the journey? Some
lessons from the journey is if you want to be in politics, You have to learn the rules of the game. So, and part of those rules is we had a team of 5, and I was brought in at the end because I took a little bit of time to consider it. So I was one of 5, number 5 of 5, whereas our number 1 ticket got a place on council. And that's great for him, and we're going to work with him so solidly. But there are lots of other rules, and, you know, I can share them with you if you want, but at the same time, I think it was good that I went in with a level of naivety to those rules, because I was really fresh and just talked about what we were campaigning for, what we were trying to achieve.
Right.
Which was to rebuild the city and revive Melbourne.
I'd like to focus now on female entrepreneurship. Is it different from male entrepreneurship?
Well, why would it be different? I don't know. You're touching an area that I'm very strong about and have a lot of very strong philosophies. So I'm not sure if we'll have enough time to go through them, but I believe...
Remember, Shabbat comes in tomorrow night. About you.
I believe that we're at a stage where there's so many fantastic things happening for women leaders, and for women in general, and for the population in general. But there also is a lot of myths that are propagated that is partly in our rhetoric. So the question about glass ceilings and whether women are better than men is probably the wrong question when we're talking about women in leadership. You know, the myths are that women have a set role or a defined role. And so my philosophy is this: let's put it into 3 letters, the 3 R's. You know, in school you have the 3 R's. Mm-hmm. So I think in life, in terms of gender balance, you have the 3 R's. And the 3 R's is this. The first one is rhetoric. So I believe we have to somewhat change the rhetoric. For example, that women have a set defined role and are solely responsible for childcare. I believe that is rhetoric, and it's changing anyway. So that's just an example of whether a female entrepreneur is better than a male entrepreneur is somewhat rhetoric, because it's like too much of a generalization. I think if we act as people, the rhetoric can help change that. So number 1, rhetoric. Number 2, role modeling. Yes. And number 3, reversing stereotypes. There's 3 types. Those are the 3 ways that gender balance will just equalize and achieve that equity. It doesn't have to be equality, but there needs to be equity in people bringing things to the table and not being seen as a set stereotype. If you really want to ask me whether female entrepreneurs are better than male entrepreneurs, still too difficult to answer. But women are natural leaders, I think. Given the chance, and that's a big one, given the chance, that means they have to want to be leaders, and that means they need to be in a position where they're asked to take a position. So there's two components to that. We need to encourage them to embrace that natural leadership, and there's so much potential in there. If you're comparing men with women, women are probably more likely to possess key leadership skills like valuing multiple stakeholders, valuing multiple perspectives. These are big generalizations, but if you're asking me to put a coin on it, feeling more able to collaborate with others, displaying high attention to detail, absorbing significant amounts of information, women are born leaders. So in terms of entrepreneurship, one needs to be a leader. So that it does make sense that that's a comfortable thing for a woman to build a business. But it doesn't necessarily negate the fact that men could be equally fantastic.
So let me pick up on 2 things there. Let's pick up firstly on stereotypes and reversing stereotypes. What are the stereotypes in your view, and how do we reverse them? Oh,
there's plenty of stereotypes. We've all, including myself, have an unconscious bias to when we see women in a role. Women for women and men for women in the same way. And we straight away have thoughts in our mind saying, are they good enough? You have different questions in your mind when you see a woman in a leadership role as opposed to a man in a leadership role. We can't help that because we've been brought up with this bias. So one way to retrain ourselves to start at a very early age, at home and at school and at university, where I'm pitted, to say, rethink where you sit in that position of stereotypes and try to reverse the role modeling, try to reverse that unconscious bias. And that comes from advertising and, gender sexualization and domesticity. All the old ads are still coming back to haunt us. So there's lots of pockets of industry that continually propagate that myth that women are in a certain box and men are in another box. So reversing those stereotypes is the only way to do it. For example, and I know that you're interested to talk about when I was a president of one of the shuls in Mizrahi.
Yes, I did want to discuss that.
Yeah. Person, I was asked, I said yes. And so there was the want, the will, and the question. Now those two things came together, and I acted in that role as a person, not as the first female president, because that would have turned a lot of people off, but really as a person that wanted to make change happen or, create harmony. And one of the things that I did through that was engender the next generation, that younger generation that really didn't have a physical home and really was split up into two or three fragmented minyanim, brought them together. I chaired a meeting over a period of a few months. We renamed them as what is now called Or David. And at the time, it was quite an easy exercise because there was a desire to be together, but sometimes you just have to collaborate and realize they were all people. So I thought being in that role, there are probably many people that thought that I shouldn't have been there, but I touched many lives and I really felt it was just such a fantastic experience. And
so I might just interrupt there just to explain to those who, you and I know what we're talking about, but those who may not. So in Mizrahi, in Melbourne, there are several minyanim and each of them has a name and it's a distinct group of people. And you were chaired or president of one of those groups. And that's what you're referring to now. And you did that for how long?
About 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
But you mentioned you were the first. You didn't announce it as the first, but you were the first to step into that role, first female to step into that role. Were you limited in any way?
I didn't feel limited in any way. There is a sort of a hierarchy in the organisation where there's an executive board and then there's a committee and then there's minyanim. So my first thought was, if I'm not on the executive board, then I really can't change anything or have a say or have a voice. And so I made sure that I was on that executive board and I was welcomed quite openly as a representative of my minyan. So I came as a figurehead as a president, but at the same time, because I was there, I could really achieve a lot more. And I think the lesson there was that, I did that sort of like just automatically, because I thought, if I'm not there, then I can make a million decisions and it could be overridden. But at the same time, what happened was we achieved a lot more together. And I saw that, okay, I was one woman out of a group of men and I got to like whiskey, but I don't love it. Right. but the thing is, it was great to be there. I was a voice. So, we've got to learn that we've got to kind of just use that influence to gain traction.
Can I say, Beverley, this is particularly poignant because St Kilda Shule now, and it's about to embark on its 150th year,
wow,
has appointed its first female vice president in its history. And she commenced duties last month. And so it's particularly poignant for those listening, particularly from St Kilda Shule. And I know that some of the people here, particularly traditionalists, say, how can you have a female vice president? So any words of wisdom for both Janice Furstenberg, our female vice president, and those skeptics still out there?
Well, you don't have to call her a female vice president. Vice president is good enough. Otherwise, call them male vice presidents too. It's all about rhetoric, because people feel like female, what do we do with them? So we don't do anything. We just allow things to organically breathe. That's fantastic. That's really, really good news. I'd love to meet her. And I'm sure that she'll achieve a
We can
lot.
set that up.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
That's brilliant.
Returning now to women in business, are there limited opportunities?
I don't think so. Why would there be limited opportunities? I know that the topic of this conversation is breaking through the glass ceiling. And
is there one?
Is there one? I mean, you know that phrase was coined in the 70s by women at a time when it was very different to now. So I don't believe there is a glass ceiling, because glass is brittle, and the whole idea then was there's an invisible ceiling that when you reach it, you cannot become more senior in a structured organization. So again, I go back to, do people want to be more senior? And if the answer is yes, are they tapped on the shoulder? And often the answer is not always. So those two questions always come up, but it's definitely not a glass ceiling anymore. I would coin it as a cloudy ceiling. So we can coin that, put that on Wikipedia, because you know what? It's still there, definitely. I'm not denying it. But at the same time, if you poke your head through that cloud, you'll see the other side, and people will see you too. So, yeah, like I think it's more organic now. And again, it goes back to the mythology that there is one, but I would guarantee you there isn't. And if we talk about propagating the myth that there is, it will continue to be.
Right. Now, you come from a very illustrious home. Your late father, I recall, was the senior rabbi of East Melbourne Hebrew Congregation for many, many years. I don't recall how long. He started well before I was born, I think. But was there role modeling in some way for female leadership?
There was definitely role modeling for community leadership. Our family was constantly involved in community affairs. Our home was riddled with people every day. My parents were always out, either visiting the sick in hospitals, or or at home, or attending weddings or bar mitzvahs or funerals. Unfortunately, it was a constant role of people. Whether we ever discussed the female aspect of it, I don't think it ever came up as a negative or a positive. But I do remember one thing that my father used to call me. One word that he always used to say when I did things, and I didn't do things because I felt like it was the right thing to do, but whatever it was in life, he used to say one word: good on you, Bev. It said so much. It said, I'm behind you, I'm with you, I support you, you're doing good stuff. And that's all we need, a little bit of confidence from behind, and know that people are supporting us. You can just do wonders. So I do feel that regardless of whether I was a male or a female, it didn't really matter. It was basically good on you, Bev. If we can just do more good on your bevs to people, and I'm trying to do that to inspire people in my communities across the globe, to give them a bit of good on you. That's all we need. We forget to thank people and encourage people. We watch a lot. And I think that, less passive and more active really helps the world.
Mm. You mentioned there were two things. One is to give women an opportunity, but the other is for women to step up to the plate. Is that latter a problem, an issue? And is the good on your Bev one of the solutions to the issue?
I think it's one of the antidotes, definitely. I don't think it's an issue in the growing Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z. The Zoomers are stepping up like, wow. I know that in B'nai Akiva, they've just appointed a new Hanhala, and apart from one male, they're all female. Mm-hmm. So something's happening, something's shaking up in our landscape. I don't think that women are less confident anymore. The odd woman might be, so would be the odd man. I think that we just don't realize what's happening around us if we're talking about the fact that there's a problem for women. I think, as a lay leader, there's huge opportunities, and whatever age one is, we've got a lot to give. And I think that's being recognized now. That's the point. Being recognized more formally, as you say, Ronnie, in terms of Kilda Shule in terms of all the shuls across the UK. It's being recognised, rewarded and valued. I know that when I went for this, going back to that council position,
yes,
I had a lot of media, as you probably saw, Jewish media as well as other. And one of the J-Wire articles on me was beautifully written, but I don't know where he got a lot of the information from, but he's a great journalist. And he coined the whole article, "Will Beverley Honig be the first Jewish female councillor for the city of Melbourne?"
Mm.
And whilst that was something that I was quite proud of, if it were to happen, at the same time, I got a few comments on social media saying, what does it matter? Shouldn't it just rely on merit? And I really thought about it, and I thought, actually, it does matter. Diversity matters. You know, if I'd be the first one, why am I the first one is the question. And second of all, why not be the first one? There should be many more after me. So helping that leg up to future candidates is a fantastic thing. And I think community matters depend on diversity. And I don't think that females are diverse in any respect whatsoever. We make up 50% of the population. But it's diverse in that if you've got a group of men and one woman, that sort of like dilutes the diversity.
So Beverley, one last question, the final message to a female or to women who wish to rise above their current level. What's your message to them?
Just do it. Just do it. And
that
have
sounds
a plan.
like Nike, I think.
Just taken Nike's approach. I think women need to put their hand up and be bold if they want to. And I must say if they want to, because not everyone does. I think that young men also need to put their hand up and be bold. Yeah. So it's the same message. You know, if you want to reach beyond that cloudy ceiling, then you actually do have to reach out beyond it and see that it's not so hard. It's actually a lot of fun. And there is very much an open hand waiting there, or an open set of hands to pull you through.
Right. Okay. Now, if you've got another minute or two, I noticed a couple of comments on the chat that just popped up. One, I don't know if you wish to address it or not as an Orthodox female, but Charlotte, one of our members, asked the question in relation to equality and egalitarianism, wanting to know the place for a mechitza in this day and age. Is it something you'd like to address?
Well, I'd like you to address the halachic answer to that before I address the other answer. What's the halakha?
Well, I can tell you the background for those who are interested. The background to mechitza actually is a Talmud in Gemara Sukkah. It says that the rabbis noted that during the festival of Sukkot, particularly, there was a lot of happiness, but they noticed there seemed to be too much frivolity and mingling between the men and women, and in the temple, in the Bet HaMikdash, and for Sukkot from then on, they built a gzustra, they built some sort of platform where the women stood separate from the men. So that's the first reference, by the way, to a separation, because during service, I won't say men were distracted, but let's just say there was too much frivolity going on, and the rabbis decided that they had to be separate for services. So that's the background to it. And your view on, as a past president of an Orthodox congregation?
I'm not here to unpick halacha, so I can't really comment on that. But at the same time, I see a lot of frivolity amongst the segregated mechitza communities, regardless of whether they're males and females together or united. So I'm starting to unpick it. But I also think it would be very interesting to have a little role play for you who is in front of the mechitza, because we see ourselves as behind the mechitza, regardless of whether it's true
the wrong way around. We're behind the mechitza.
But being behind the mechitza, or one side of the mechitza where the Torah is not, you know, it's interesting if you were to go there and see what it's like, and I've grown up as every woman has here, then you probably get your own answer.
Yeah. And Simone, who's a regular on our each Thursday, makes a comment: organisations with more women in leadership roles could be the result of male apathy. Is that true?
Who cares?
Or more women putting up their hands?
Yeah, let that be. It doesn't mean that more women doesn't mean that there'll be less men. I think it's good to have that mix. All women or all men is not healthy in terms of lay leadership or in terms of leadership in general. It's not healthy. It's not wise. Do you know that McKinsey said that $12 trillion will be added to the global or GDP of the world if more women were in senior positions and on boards? And you know that there's so many reports and data on this. Morgan Stanley said that $3 trillion will be added to the global community and opportunities in business if women were pulled into senior positions. So the answer to that is, from a community perspective, how much more value can we offer as a mixed group when we're talking about leadership? And I can see from my time, as president, there's so much more to give. So, I think we've come to that realization. It's just now a matter of making it work. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Beverley, for joining us today. I very much appreciate it. People can, by the way, if you're still unfamiliar with this, you can click on reactions and you can go like that. But thank you very much, Beverley. It's been wonderful and I must admit, very insightful. And I hope at least that both the men and women listening to this will have thought about new opportunities for a gender balance within our society. So thank you very much for joining us today. Very much appreciate it. Before we finalise for today's session, there is so much, Beverley, happening in your Mizrahi, but certainly in St Kilda Shule. We're celebrating Shabbat Project, which is tomorrow night and this Shabbat. We're going to be running live at 6 o'clock tomorrow evening, the very first session in their new shul in the Daryl and Hannah and Daryl Cohen building. Used to be in the Montepura home, so we're going to be running live. Saturday night, everyone's invited to join us for a Havdalah. It won't be lots of people together. Unfortunately, we still can't do that. But if you could bring along to your computer a cup of wine or grape juice and some spices and a candle or two, we're going to be doing something at 9 o'clock. It's all in our newsletter. If you're not getting our newsletter, by the way, now's a great time to just type in. In fact, I might change if I can, I'll try to change so you can only type to me. Yes, so now you'll only be able to type to me. You can type in your email address into the chat and I'll try to make sure you get the newsletter, because besides that, next week, Beverley, you'll like this and so will the others. Next week, we have a special guest speaker on our Thursday Lunch Club. It'll be Rafael Aaron, and he'll be speaking about the de-radicalization of Islamists. Very topical, unfortunately, very topical, again, as it was in Vienna yesterday and in France earlier in the week. So it'd be interesting to hear what he has to say about progress that he's making in the de-radicalization of Islamists. The following week, that's in 2 weeks from today, we've got another special topic. It's not in our newsletter, but I can tell you now, simple tips for making your home appealing. We have a person who's Marshall Rushford, is principal director and an auctioneer for a real estate company called Hawking Stewart Bell Property, and he'll be giving you some simple tips, whether you want to sell your home or not, irrelevant. But he says, I've got some simple tips that you can make your home look appealing. If you ever want to sell it down the track, you'll have kept it in great shape. But in about a month's time, very, very important one, we have cybersecurity. Could you be the next victim? And we have Theo Anton, who's an information security manager at Commonwealth Bank in Sydney, and he'll be speaking about what to look out for. So that's coming up. We also have Kristallnacht next week, and I do invite people to sign up to light up your homes from 7 to 11 o'clock at night next week on the 9th of November to re-illuminate the world after the darkness of Kristallnacht. Tonight, by the way, for those of you who are still in the Yad Vashem program, we have the Yad Vashem Masterclass. If you did not sign up for the 10-week masterclass, don't worry, you can still do that today. We've done now 3 sessions. Tonight is the 4th. It's not too late to sign up. All of that information is in our newsletter. So put in your email address if you're not currently getting the newsletter. Beverley, once again, thank you very, very much. And thank you to all of you for joining us today. May all your news be good news.
Amen, Ronnie. And thank you for all the fantastic work you do.
Thank you very much. I'll make sure I pass it on to my wife that I'm doing some fantastic work. My mother already knows.
Well, wonderful mother who's here right now.
That's right.
Hello,
thank you very, very much. And to all of you, all the very best. Thank you.
Thank you.